You know, fight fans, the world of combat sports has seen some real characters, but none quite like Mike Tyson. This dude's life story is like something out of a Hollywood movie, man. We're talking about a guy who went from the mean streets of Brooklyn to becoming the baddest man on the planet. And I mean, we're not just talking about boxing here. Tyson transcended the sport. He became a global icon, a walking paradox of raw power and vulnerability. He was feared, he was admired, and let's be honest, he was probably one of the most entertaining athletes to ever grace the ring. So what was it about Iron Mike that captivated the world? What made him such a force of nature? We're gonna dive deep into the life of Mike Tyson, exploring the 10 defining moments that shaped his incredible journey. Get ready, folks, because we're about to break down the legend of the one and only Iron Mike Tyson. Now picture Brooklyn in the 60s, man. It wasn't the hipster haven it is now, you know. We're talking rough streets, poverty, crime everywhere. It was a tough place to grow up, especially for a young Mike Tyson. Born in 1966, Tyson's childhood was rough, man. I mean, we're talking real hardship. His father was out of the picture early on, and his mother was doing her best to make ends meet. But it was a constant struggle. Imagine the impact that kind of environment has on a young kid. By the time he was 13, Tyson had already seen more trouble than most people see in a lifetime. He was getting into fights, running with the wrong crowd, and ending up in juvie on multiple occasions. It was like he was on a collision course with disaster. It's a story that's all too familiar, unfortunately, but what's remarkable about Tyson is what he managed to overcome and how he channeled all that rage and frustration into something powerful. Now, the streets were tough, but for Tyson, they were also his training ground. He learned to fight, not just to survive, but to dominate. He had this raw aggression, this primal instinct that made him a force to be reckoned with even at a young age. He was getting into street fights, and I mean these weren't your average schoolyard scuffles. We're talking about bare-knuckle brawls where Tyson was taking on guys twice his size and knocking them out cold. Word started to spread about this kid who could really bang. It's almost like he had this untapped potential, this raw power that was just waiting to be unleashed. But without any guidance, without anyone to show him the right path, it could have easily gone the wrong way. He was like a stick of dynamite with a short fuse. Luckily for Tyson, fate had other plans. His life was about to change forever thanks to a chance encounter with a man who would become his mentor, his savior, and the architect of his legendary boxing career. So, Tyson ends up at the Tryon School for Boys, a juvenile detention center in upstate New York. It seemed like his life was spiraling out of control, heading down a dark path. But sometimes, man, even in the darkest of places, a glimmer of hope appears.
That glimmer came in the form of Bobby Stewart, a former boxer turned counselor at the school. Stewart saw something special in Tyson, something more than just a troubled kid. He recognized the raw talent, the explosive power that was just waiting to be harnessed.
Stewart introduced Tyson to the legendary boxing trainer Cus D'Amato. Now, Cus was a tough old-school trainer, a true master of the sweet science. He'd trained champions before, guys like Floyd Patterson and Jose Torres, but even he was taken aback by Tyson's raw potential.
Cus saw in Tyson a diamond in the rough, a kid with the potential to be the greatest boxer the world had ever seen, and he was determined to make it happen. This was the beginning of a partnership that would change boxing history forever.
Cus didn't just teach Tyson how to box, he taught him how to be a warrior, a disciplined athlete. He instilled in him a sense of purpose, a belief that he could achieve anything he set his mind to. It was like Cus gave Tyson the mental blueprint to match his physical gifts. He drilled Tyson relentlessly, pushing him to his absolute limits. He taught him the peekaboo style of boxing, which emphasized head movement, bobbing and weaving, and lightning-fast counterpunches. This style perfectly suited Tyson's natural aggression and power. But it wasn't just about technique and strategy. Cus also became a father figure to Tyson, providing the guidance and stability he'd been lacking his entire life. He took Tyson under his wing, even becoming his legal guardian after Tyson's mother sadly passed away.
Under Cus's tutelage, Tyson blossomed. He wasn't just fighting to survive anymore, he was fighting for something more, for a dream, for greatness.
Alright, so picture this. March 6, 1985. A young Mike Tyson, just 19 years old, steps into the ring for his first professional fight. This is it, the culmination of years of training with Cus D'Amato, all those hours in the gym, all that raw talent about to be unleashed.
The atmosphere was electric, man. You could cut the tension with a knife. Everyone knew this kid was something special, but nobody, and I mean nobody, was ready for what was about to go down.
Tyson's opponent, Hector Mercedes, was no slouch. This guy was a seasoned pro, had a lot more experience in the ring than Tyson. But man, from the opening bell, it was like a hungry lion going after a gazelle. Tyson was relentless, a whirlwind of punches, just pure aggression and power.
Mercedes tried to weather the storm, but there was no stopping the force of nature that was a young Mike Tyson. It was over in the first round. First round knockout. Boom! The crowd went wild. You could feel the energy in the arena.
This was the birth of a legend. This was the world's introduction to Iron Mike Tyson, the baddest man on the planet. This wasn't just a win, it was a statement, a sign of things to come. And it wasn't just the knockout, man, it was the way he fought, the power, the speed, the ferocity. People hadn't seen anything like it before.
That first fight, it was like a shot of adrenaline straight into the heart of the boxing world. People were talking, man. The hype was real. Everyone wanted to see this Tyson kid fight again.
He fought again and again and again, 14 times in that first year, knocking out every single opponent. 14 fights, 14 knockouts. That's insane, dude.
The guy was a machine. He was a force of nature. He was Mike freaking Tyson. And it wasn't just the wins, it was the way he won. The knockouts were brutal, man. He was putting guys to sleep left and right. Jaws were getting broken. Ribs were getting cracked. It was like watching a demolition derby, except with one guy just destroying everything in his path.
And you gotta remember, this was in the 80s, man. Boxing was huge back then. And Tyson, he was the new king. He was must-see TV. Everyone wanted to be a part of it. Now, fast forward to November 22nd, 1986. Less than 2 years after his professional debut, Tyson's facing Trevor Berbick for the WBC Heavyweight Championship. Can you believe that? 2 years. Most guys are just getting started after 2 years, and here's Tyson fighting for the title.
The hype for this fight was unreal. Everyone knew what was at stake. Could this young phenom really become the heavyweight champion of the world? Or would Berbick, the seasoned veteran, be too much for him to handle? It was a classic matchup, youth versus experience, power versus finesse. Man, I was on the edge of my seat.
The atmosphere in the arena was electric. You could feel the energy crackling in the air. The crowd was going wild, chanting Tyson's name. This was it, man. This was his moment. This was his destiny.
In the second round, it happened. Tyson landed a thunderous left hook that sent Berbick crashing to the canvas. Berbick tried to get up, but he was out on his feet. The referee stopped the fight. It was over. Just like that.
Mike Tyson was the new heavyweight champion of the world. At 20 years old, he became the youngest heavyweight champion in history, a record that still stands today. Can you imagine that? 20 years old.
Most guys are just trying to figure out what they want to do with their lives at that age. And here's Tyson, on top of the world. The crowd went absolutely bananas. People were jumping up and down, hugging strangers, screaming their heads off. It was pandemonium.
And Tyson, he just stood there in the middle of the ring, soaking it all in. He had done it. He had achieved his dream.
This wasn't just a victory, it was a coronation, the dawn of a new era in boxing, the Tyson era. And it was clear to everyone watching, this kid was something special. He was a once-in-a-generation talent. He was a force of nature. Now, 1987, this is where things get really crazy. Tyson, he's on a mission to unify all the heavyweight titles. He's already got the WBC belt, and he's coming for the WBA and IBF titles. This guy was unstoppable.
First up was James Bonecrusher Smith, the WBA champ. Now, Smith was a tough dude, known for his granite chin and his awkward style. He was a real handful for a lot of fighters, but man, Tyson walked through him like he wasn't even there. He dominated the fight from start to finish, winning a unanimous decision.
Then came Tony Tucker, the IBF champ. Another tough dude, a skilled boxer with a lot of power. This fight went the distance, but Tyson was just too much. He battered Tucker for 12 rounds. winning another unanimous decision. And just like that, in the span of a year, Mike Tyson had done what no one thought was possible. He had unified all three major heavyweight titles. He was the undisputed champion of the world, the baddest man on the planet. Think about that for a second. This young kid from the streets of Brooklyn had conquered the boxing world. He was on top of the world. He was a global icon. He was Mike freaking Tyson.
And it wasn't just the titles, man. It was the way he carried himself. The aura of invincibility. The fear he instilled in his opponents. He was a force of nature, a whirlwind of power and aggression. His fights became must-see events. Everyone wanted to see Iron Mike in action. He was selling out arenas, breaking pay-per-view records. He was bigger than boxing. He was a cultural phenomenon.
And it wasn't just the boxing world that was captivated by Tyson. He was everywhere, man. On TV and movies, on magazine covers. He was dating actresses, hanging out with rock stars. He was living the dream.
So, Tyson's on top of the world, right? The youngest heavyweight champion ever, knocking dudes out left and right. But life outside the ring, man, it's a different beast. He's got this intensity, this rage that fueled him in the ring, but out here, it's a problem.
And then, boom, 1992, he's convicted of rape and sentenced to 6 years. 6 years, man. Can you imagine? This guy, who had the world by the balls, locked up. It's a hard fall, a real tragedy. People are divided. Some believe him, some don't.
It's a dark chapter, no doubt, but you gotta remember, Tyson's story doesn't end here. This is just a crazy turn, a detour on this wild ride. Does this break him? Does he disappear into the system? Or does he come back even stronger?
Now, prison is no joke, especially for someone like me.
But you know what? He finds a way. He starts reading, educating himself. He gets into meditation, trying to understand his own mind, the same way he studied his opponents. He finds Islam in prison, a source of discipline and peace. It becomes a turning point.
You can see it in my eyes, man, the transformation. The fire's still there, but it's controlled, more focused.
3 years into his sentence, he's released. The world's waiting. They want to know, is this a changed man? Can he recapture the magic? Or is this the end of Mike Tyson, the champion? "1995, Tyson's back. Can you imagine the pressure? 3 years away, stripped of his titles, doubted by everyone. But he's got that look in his eye, man, that hunger. He wants it back.
I start with a couple of warm-up fights, you know, just to shake off the rust. And let me tell you, I'm knocking these guys out cold. The power is still there, the speed, the intimidation factor.
The world's watching, man. They want to see if he's still got it. And you know what? He proves them wrong. This is a new Tyson, a more disciplined, more calculated fighter. He's not just winning, he's destroying people. He wins the WBC title, then the WBA title. It's like he never left. The crowds are going wild. It's the comeback story everyone loves.
But there's a darkness there too, you know? A shadow. Those demons, they don't just disappear. He's still got that rage, that intensity.
The boxing world is captivated. Is this the old Tyson back to his destructive ways, or is this something different? This is what makes him so compelling, man. You never knew what you were gonna get. So, it's 1997, and the world is set for this epic rematch, Tyson versus Holyfield.
Holyfield, this super religious dude, a total contrast to Tyson's intensity. But man, can he fight?
The first fight, Holyfield wins. Knocks Tyson out in the 11th round. It's a huge upset. Tyson's pissed. Feels like he got headbutted, but it's a legit loss.
The rematch is set. The hype is insane. Pay-per-view records are broken. Everyone's watching, waiting to see what's going to happen.
The fight starts, and it's a war. These guys are going at it, throwing bombs. But then, in the third round, it happens.
Tyson, frustrated, angry, he bites Holyfield on the ear. The crowd goes nuts. The ref's freaking out. Holyfield's in pain, bleeding. It's chaos.
They try to restart the fight, but Tyson does it again. Bites him on the other ear.
That was it. Fight's over. Tyson is disqualified, and the world is in shock. This wasn't just a fight anymore, it was a spectacle, a moment that would be replayed for years to come.
So, it's 2005, right? Tyson's been through the ringer, he's had these epic highs, these devastating lows, and it all starts to take its toll. You can only imagine the pressure, the scrutiny, the constant battles inside and outside the ring.
And you know Tyson, he's a complex dude, man. He's got this warrior spirit, this primal need to conquer, but even warriors get tired. They get to a point where they're just done.
And that's what happened with Tyson. He fought Kevin McBride, and it wasn't pretty, man. He loses the fight, and you can see it in his eyes, you know? The fire's gone. The hunger, the drive, it's just not there anymore. He even says after the fight that he's lost the passion to compete. Can you imagine that? This guy, who lived and breathed boxing, was just over it.
And you know what? I respect the hell out of that. It takes a real man, a real warrior to know when to walk away. To say, I'm done. It's not about being a quitter. It's about being honest with yourself.
So Tyson retires, right? And the world's like, what's next for Iron Mike?
This dude was a global icon, man. He transcended boxing. He was in movies, TV shows, video games, the whole 9 yards.
But retirement's a trip, man. It can be tough for anyone, especially someone like Tyson, who'd been competing his whole life.
You're so used to the adrenaline, the roar of the crowd, the thrill of victory, and then silence. It's a huge adjustment.
But you know what? Tyson, he's a survivor, man. He reinvented himself.
He got into acting, did some stand-up comedy, even started his own cannabis company. Who would have thought, right?
And through it all, he never lost that Tyson charisma, that raw, unfiltered honesty that made people love him or hate him, but never ignore him. So, it's 2024, right? The world's changed. Tyson's changed. He's older, wiser, maybe even a little mellower. But there's this one thing about Tyson. He always keeps you guessing. And then, bam! Out of nowhere, he announces he's coming back to the ring. Not for a title fight, not for money, but for an exhibition match against some young buck.
Now, a lot of people were skeptical, man. They were like, Tyson's too old for this. He's gonna get hurt. But you know what? I wasn't surprised. Because with Tyson, you never knew what to expect. This is a guy who's stared down his demons, who's been to hell and back. What's one more fight, right?
So, the night of the fight arrives, and the energy is electric, man. It's not about winning or losing anymore. It's about witnessing history. It's about celebrating one of the greatest boxers of all time. And Tyson, he doesn't disappoint. He's not the same ferocious beast he was in his prime, but he's still got those hands. He's still got that power, that speed, that aura of intimidation.
And you know what? The young guy, he's good. He's fast, he's skilled, but he's fighting a legend, man. He's fighting a force of nature. The fight goes the distance, and in the end, it's a draw. But nobody cares about the scorecards, man. It's about Tyson proving to himself and to the world that he's still got it. It's about legacy.
So there you have it, folks. The story of Mike Tyson, from a troubled kid to a world champion, from scandal to redemption. It's a story about the power of the human spirit, about the will to overcome adversity and come out swinging. Tyson's life is proof that legends aren't born, they're made. They're forged in the fires of adversity, in the crucible of competition. Which moment of Tyson's story inspires you the most? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more legendary stories.